First came the darkness, then came the strangers. Dark City is a movie made by the universe. Unfortunately, so few understood the movie, and it was such a flop at the box office, that the universe had to keep making more over time. The Matrix, Donnie Darko, Truman Show, Lost, Vanilla Sky, Inception, and Adjustment Bureau, to name a few. But to be clear, all of these movies are retellings of Dark City, except for Donnie Darko, which is in a special class of its own. Dark City explains much of our reality, the illusion of it, and who creates that illusion. But there are so many layers. And Dark City does not conclude with the happy ending people believe. John does not leave the cave. In fact, I find the movies listed above tend to be very good at presenting the cave, or at least the material element of the cave, but not the actual way of exit. I will give an overview of the movie in a paragraph or two for those who have not seen it. It was written and directed by Alex Proyas, a Greek originally born in Alexandria, Egypt, but lived most of his life in Australia. It is set in a city, seemingly in the 1940s or 50s, yet has elements from many different time frames. We find later that this is not a real city, but an artificial realm created using psychic powers by an alien race called the Strangers. The Strangers brought humans to this realm from their original home for an experiment. This false city is a world which they renew and change every midnight by implanting new memories and identities in the humans. This realm, we later find out, is a giant circular city floating in outer space, and it is always in perpetual darkness. The Strangers are a dying race, and they are experimenting on humans because they want to understand the human soul. They believe that by doing so, they will gain the secret to save themselves. They believe memories are somehow linked to the soul, and as such, the main element of their experiments is human memory. Every night at midnight, the city is stopped and everyone is made to go to sleep. During this freeze period, new identities and memories, as identity is linked to memory, are given to each human, which they will live out the following day. One day they live rich, the next day they live poor. This means that the humans in Dark City wake each day with another series of false memories to a character that is not really them, which will change again the following day. Some characters seem to stay the same for a while, such as the detective, while others change on a nightly basis. But at no time are they living the truth of who they are, because after so many memory wipes, they can no longer remember. One of the first things to understand about Dark City is the names of the characters. John Murdoch becomes our hero. That he is named John is significant. But what specifically is the name pointing towards? Is it to John as the key disciple of Jesus and writer of the Gnostic and Cathar text Secret Gospel of John, also called the Apocryphon of John? Or is he John the Baptist? Or is the name relating to the idea of all the heads of the Priory of Zion, of Rennes-le-Château lore, who all took the name of Joan or John? He will be the original one of the first Matrix movie alludes to. A bigger message lies in the name of the Doctor, played by Kiefer Sutherland. He has been given the same name as Dr. Daniel P. Schreiber, a German who wrote Memories of My Nervous Illness in 1903. In this book, he describes a mental breakdown which sent him to psychiatric hospitals for years. While it became a key foundation text of psychology, when you look further during his episodes, he is discussing the makeup of the reality, the realm of God, and beings he sees interacting with people. It is hard to say how much of what Schreiber went through was true mental illness, and how much was seeing past the veil of normal reality and having no ability to deal with what he saw. I am currently a few chapters into it, and needless to say, it is a fascinating read. We get our first glimpse of John as he wakes up in a bathtub. This bathtub will become an important symbolically and one of our many Matrix similarities. We find out later that somehow he managed to burst free from the attempted nightly insertion of the new memories. In this case, to make him think or believe that he is a serial killer. I will get to this opening scene later in the examination. He knows not who he is or where he is, and goes on a search for his real identity. Eventually, we meet the other characters, his wife Emma, Inspector Frank Bumstead, who is also questioning his reality, Detective Eddie Walensky, who went semi-crazy from bursting the bubble of reality, the dark-coated strangers who are after John, and Dr. Schreber, who is working for the strangers to perfect their experiments, so that he can stay a scientist and not have his memory wiped. Schreber later makes up a specific injection for John, which instead of wiping his memories, gives him new memories that hold complete knowledge. In the concoction that Schreber injects into John, he has placed himself into John's memories, to act as a type of trusted guide. In almost all of the implanted memories of the Doctor interacting with young John, there is sunlight present, symbolizing a reality without the strangers, and at the same time, the light of that which is beyond the dark false reality. Through Dr. Schreber's teachings, John begins harnessing his psychic power to a higher degree than the strangers. John's searching was focused on a postcard of an ocean paradise called Shell Beach, and later a diary. It is called Dark City because the city is always in night. In the movie, John will ask Bumstead, "Do you ever remember the last time you saw sunlight? When was it?" The strangers seem to detest sunlight, as they do water, which of course are the two key features necessary for life on Earth. The sun is also a symbolic reference to the original light of God, that from which we have all become separated from, and in a sense, part of John's real search is not to find a real nice Shell Beach, which he comes to find never actually existed, but the absolute light of that which is beyond the material. Dark City is not dark due to the lack of the sun, but dark due to the lack of the light of Gnosis and true wisdom. Recall on the postcard for Shell Beach, a sun does appear in the upper left corner, but it is winking. Winking to suggest that on one hand the entire idea of Shell Beach and the sun is a lie. Of course, given the thesis of this book, the winking sun can indicate that the sun is the tunnel of light, the very thing we want to avoid to escape Plato's cave. There is much to dig into when looking at the group we can only deem as the controllers in the movie. We are told first came the darkness, then came the strangers. So what was this original darkness? A type of hypnotic sleep to move the first humans to the new dark city? The strangers are the ones who have taken humans from their home. The specifics of this human home are never indicated. And then they manufactured Dark City. So humans are actually strangers to the realm, although the name is given to these bald-headed, dark-cloaked beings. The forms we see of the strangers are just shells. They are the bodies of dead humans that the strangers have appropriated. When one of them dies, we see a bug-like creature come out of their head. This echoes the Matrix, and the idea that what we think of as our mind is nothing but an invading parasitic entity that has taken over our thought. What is interesting to me is that although there are thousands of strangers, not one of them has a female form. Why is that? Why did the director not even have one female stranger? This is not an oversight, but a choice. The message behind that choice has not yet been revealed. The stranger's main control of reality is through psychic mind manipulation, a sort of hive mentality. At midnight, they are able to reshape reality to a new vision through collective use of these powers. Reality is therefore reset every midnight. We have recently come to learn that our own world has been reset several times in the past as well. In our realm, no explanation has been given to explain when and how these previous resets happened. Perhaps these resets might be generated by some sort of psychic force, released into our realm as this movie indicates. The ability to shape reality is known as tuning, and is a very Castaneda-like word, as he speaks of the movement of the assemblage point as a tuning into a new frequency, which, by doing so, will create an entirely new world or reality. How John Murdoch gained the same skill as the strangers is never explained, only that when he resisted the needle to the pineal gland, and you will notice many pine cones throughout the movie symbolic of the pineal, John has the same tuning ability as the strangers, and this seems to scare them immensely. We get a glimpse of what is really going on every midnight, when time, space, and memories are reset and reshaped. It comes from a short scene of the movie theater just as the clock strikes 12. There are 2 movies listed on the main sign. To the left of the title claims, "Now showing, The Evil, Late Show Nightly." This small marquee is describing what is happening every night, and that it is evil. The entire manipulation of time, space, and memories is evil. At midnight on the stairs under this marquee, a number of humans have dropped into sleep mode, again revealing who the evil is being perpetrated on. However, on the marquee to the right is another title, Coming Attractions, B-O-K of Dreams. It alludes to the future, but one O in the title is likely missing. So the upcoming movie might be Book of Dreams, or it can also be read as B-O-K of Dreams. That can be a sign of hope or a sign of further entrapment to a false reality, depending on how you view it. What is interesting is that unlike the sleeping humans on the stairs below the left marquee, no one is asleep under the B-O-K of Dreams marquee, as if the dreams talked about were having nothing to do with sleep. Are dreams just previous memories of previous lives from previous memory wipes being reminded back to us? This paragraph might be very difficult for those who have not seen the movie. Book of Dreams is also a famous album from Steve Miller Band in 1977, which has had some very unique songs on it, such as Jungle Love and Jet Airliner, which are mystical lyrics and that were entwined with the television show Lost. As we go along, we must see that seeking of whether John is or is not the murderer is in fact a moot point. This is because who he thinks he is, or what he has done, is only a product of the nightly injection by the strangers. Much like a robot of Westworld who kills another robot, it cannot be called a murderer, for it is simply following the programming given them by Ford and Bernard. Similarly, who or what Murdoch's outer identity is means very little. Who or what is beyond all of the identity injections is all that really matters. The confusion of memory tends to be the main clue for humans to dig into the truth of themselves. It is the memories John has of Shell Beach, which he begins to question may or may not be real, and that sends him on a quest of knowing. This reminds me of Maeve in the TV series Westworld, where she finds her own drawings of the spacesuit-like men who take her away after each of her deaths, only to be repaired and then put back on the work line. She is leaving constant notes to herself in each of these lives, a new drawing, hoping in one of her resets she will remember it all. Part of this series is the story of Maeve, who has taken these clues from her past to dig through her own so-called memories to find out what is true. John is doing the same with Shell Beach, and in fact, he may have at one time focused on the diary, which he later finds to be empty, as a way of jarring himself into understanding. Yet the other characters who are most questioning their reality, Detectives Bumstead and Walensky, are also focused on memories as well. Bumstead shows Emma the accordion he got from his dying mother, supposedly his greatest gift, but he cannot remember when he actually received it before she died. He asks Emma and himself, "How could I forget a thing like that?" This is a line I uttered myself during the work of my recapitulation process, as long-buried and forgotten memories appeared, and I asked myself very deeply, how could I forget something so important? This made me question what memory is, and if some force might be choosing what we remember and what we forget. After delving deep into such things as the TV series Westworld and the movie The Truman Show, we have to ask if any of our memories are real or falsely implanted, backstories to give us an explanation of where our character is today. If we are in a simulation, and it began sometime during our supposed life, then every memory prior to the start moment of the simulation is nothing but backstory, and as such has no relevance. No matter how traumatic, beautiful, or seemingly life-changing, it is not a real memory of a real experience. Just because John has memories of Shell Beach, it does not mean he was actually there or that it even exists. Dark City is pointing to this question. Why do we trust our memories as true, even though generally we have almost nothing to verify them? The past is taken on face value as having actually happened to us because we have the memory. John waking up in the tub is very important. The Matrix will try to symbolize this place as the body is placed in a sort of cold storage, while virtual reality is pumped into the brain of the sleeper. Murdoch is in the bath and about to be injected with the new memory of being a murderer. The camera is hung from the ceiling, and the light is swaying side to side, casting a bit of light into the room where it swings. I think this is also an allusion to the sun of our world being a type of artificial light that has a similar back and forth movement that creates summer and winter. Our Earth is a dark city. We are tricked to thinking space is black and we live in light. But actually, space is light, and this place is dark, illuminated by a false sun. As such, the idea of space and Earth as we have known is being destroyed in this opening scene. His bathtub is purple in color, purple being the crown chakra, and he is in the tub and already had some type of awakening, even though it will take him a while to remember it. John first looks closely into the mirror to try to figure out who he is, and notices the crack in the upper part of the mirror, symbolizing the crack inside of him, the crack of coming to understand this world. The dead prostitute with the spirals on her body is the metaphor of the labyrinth for the journey of going inward to the seat of the true self, which is no self. There are many spirals within the movie, representing cyclic time, the labyrinth of going inward, and links to the TV show Westworld. John first looks closely into the mirror to try to figure out who he is, and notices the crack in the upper part of the mirror, symbolizing the crack inside himself, the crack of coming to understand this world. The dead prostitute with the spirals on her body is the metaphor of the labyrinth, for the journey of going inward to the seat of the true self. There are many spirals within the movie, representing cyclic time, the labyrinth of going inward, and links to the TV show Westworld, which had the man in black on a quest to understand the spiral as a metaphor for ultimate knowing. In Dark City, the strangers are trying to understand the human soul. Dr. Schreber is working with rats in a maze. He is looking into ways to get the spirals into John or other humans. A key moment is when John looks at the tip of his finger and sees that it too has become a spiral labyrinth. As if he himself is not just working through the labyrinth, but the maze he must journey through and beyond. We notice later that he accidentally breaks a fishbowl. The goldfish is struggling for life. John was not going to let this fish die, and saves it by placing it in the bathtub. This has generally been claimed as showing that he is not a murderer, but this is much more of a symbol. First, the fishbowl represents the bubble of reality, or the dome of the world. John has cracked reality. He, of course, is the fish, or the fish might represent the child self, which he looks after by putting in the water. We never find out what happens to the fish. Did one of the investigating police officers keep the fish? This goldfish bowl breaking is seen often in film, most recently in the first episode of the very strange TV series Moon Knight. Friedrich Kwiatkowski, in his very excellent article, gave a presentation that several Gnostic viewpoints were included in Dark City. I will let you read the article, the link is below, and dig further into his thesis. A brief overview of the movie can include the revelation that the creator of the world was not a good god but an evil one, the demiurge or Mr. Book of Dark City, and this demiurge created an artificial simulation that the Gnostics referred to as hell, and then trapped souls in this realm. The trapped souls are kept in place by his agents, which Gnostics called archons. This is Dark City in a nutshell. Humans are brought to the city from some other place. We are never told how the strangers accomplish this. They are held in the city under constant false identities, in a world that is very clearly simulated. In the Gnostic world, however, in order for this demiurge to create required a fall, this being the female half of the good god Sophia dropping into matter. Her error, as the Gnostics call it, allowed this realm to be created and for souls to be trapped. I will discuss Gnostic ideas in a chapter in Book 2, but their belief that Sophia snuck a divine spark, or pneuma, a word linked to the lungs and as such to breath, into the original demiurge's creation. It is this divine spark within, which does not come from the demiurge, that can allow for all beings in this creation to be potentially redeemed. Kwiatkowski also discusses the idea of the Redeemer, a concept of a being or spirit from outside of physical matter who is entered in order to present gnosis to the world, and thus provide the pointer to an exit. To Gnostics, Christ was called a Redeemer, as that was his role, not to take away our sins, but to act like a pointer for our own inner resources to find our way back to the Father. Watching Dark City, it becomes very clear that The Matrix that came out the following year is in many ways almost the same movie, and in fact was shot using many of the exact same sets. We might think of it as Dark City 2.0. I think of it less as the makers of The Matrix stealing ideas directly from Dark City, though the director feels otherwise, but instead as the universe, what is outside of the cave, using the movie to bring knowledge into our realm. Dark City was not a cinematic success. Almost no one went to see it. However, the next year, The Matrix took the world by storm, and it is this movie that became used in the vernacular for describing false reality. I can say Dark City actually tells far more of this reality and how it is structured, and can be seen as the original and more complete Matrix story. Let's start with the similarities between the movies, as this also reveals an evolution that has happened. First is the character Neo, thought of as the one that will save humans. It is mentioned that there was a one before Neo who had the same powers. This is John Murdoch. Murdoch, although having gained total knowledge of Plato's cave, and even how to manipulate it to remove the strangers to create a better place, obviously did not free anyone. This is now the task of Morpheus, Trinity, and the like, because Murdoch's efforts did not end the control. The world continued on, perhaps with a nice freedom-like quality for the people for a few hundred or thousand years, but then the world of the Matrix comes into place. After a war and darkening of the skies again, people were placed in pods and a fake artificial reality created. What, if anything, was gained? The first question is Neo really another version of Murdoch? Are Morpheus and Trinity on the good side? They still wear the same long dark coats like the strangers wore. Humans in Dark City were not the ones to wear these outfits. Are they being worn to symbolically present that they have picked up the tuning ability of the old strangers, and as such have chosen to look like them? The Smith agent characters are all wearing dark suits and sunglasses. Have the strangers been updated to Mr. Smith or something else entirely? There are so many questions once you understand that one movie is the evolution of the other many years in the future. What is really going on with these movies? Dr. Schreber and Morpheus say almost the same exact lines of dialogue. We know Schreber was working for the strangers until the end of the movie, so is Morpheus also working for the agents behind the scenes? As for other obvious similarities, the names Mr. Murdoch and Mr. Anderson are constantly repeated in both movies. John and Neo both awaken in a bathtub-like device and in similar motions. Both John and Neo are warned over the phone that the agents or strangers are coming for them. In both movies, the pursuers come out of the same elevator in the same way. There are similar building jumps that happen on the exact same buildings, and the same black and white stairway is used. The underground lair of the strangers becomes the underground city of Zion in the Matrix. So who really inhabits this city? Both movies have needles inserted into the characters' heads, in the front to implant the false memories in Dark City, and in the back to implant the so-called knowledge programs in the Matrix. Both movies have the same bug-like creatures in the bodies. In Dark City, they are in the aliens, but in the Matrix, they are in people. Does this mean that Neo is really a stranger? Or have the aliens gone from implanting dead bodies to live bodies? Or is this a clue that Neo, and perhaps the entire ship of people, are in fact dead and being used by the aliens in some way in some sort of manufactured dream realm. When you start to see Dark City as the origin story, all these Matrix similarities are a call to go back to origin to find your answers. Dark City seems to give a complete uncovered view of how humans are fooled and by whom. There are many scenes that mirror the 2011 movie The Adjustment Bureau, which in some ways also is the movie Dark City retold. Here are a few similarities. The hats worn by the so-called controllers, the hatred of water, doors being magically formed to take you to a new area of the city, memory wipes going on for the people in the city, and another unhappy ending. Matt Damon is now the John Murdoch character, and he and Elise choose the Matrix, the lie of love and life. It is presented to the viewer as if someone being called the chairman has changed the story so they can be together because of how much they love each other. How wonderful. No. This is a creator who had agents controlling people for centuries, wiping their memories, altering lives, destroying all attempts at free will, and then all of a sudden will just become a super nice guy for Matt Damon and allow his life? The manipulation is still going on, and the chairman is choosing the life, not Matt Damon. The control is still complete. The search for real truth or why this world is so controlled is over. They will live out in happy fantasy land only to die, have their memory wiped, have this chairman, the demiurge, reincarnate them back into a new body with no memory, and live out another useless life. You are either in the system or you are out. As the Adjustment Bureau shows, there is no middle ground. There are also many similarities between Dark City and The Truman Show, a movie from the same year. This includes both Murdoch and Bumstead bashing apart the brick wall with pickaxes to get what is outside of the bubble reality, while Truman's boat pierces the sky barrier to see that the horizon was just a painted wall. There are also parallels to Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, where only he has been granted knowledge of the nature of reality, while the rest of the surrounding people, who also get reset every evening, although they retain the same memories and personalities, stay asleep to the knowledge of their ever-repeating day. The ending of Dark City is not the happy ending viewers believe. While there is a type of happiness because the strangers are gone, and John reconnects with Emma in the new sunlight ocean world he has just manifested, Emma is not Emma anymore. She is now Anna, and has no previous memories of who John is. She seems to feel a connection to him, attempting to show, perhaps, that one's love goes beyond even identity as she walks with him into the sun to Shell Beach. But there is far more hopelessness here than hope. This is because the movie ends similar to just about every other movie with a theme of Plato's cave. No one exits the cave. The cave gets seen more clearly. There has been a sense of freedom or control exerted, but everyone, including John, is still in the cave. Other than him, no one else it seems to have awakened to any deeper levels. Everyone else, just like Anna or previously Emma, will continue in ignorance, living in their most recent memories and identity. In fact, Anna could be more trapped than before, because while life was previously nightmarish, difficult, painful, and dark, there will still be a seeking for what is true in some way. When life becomes pleasant, beach-like, and is always sunny, nice, and light, the need to see what is beyond generally ceases. Prison has been made into a nicer experience. Even though John has gained the complete tuning ability of the strangers and can shape the world, granted, he has made it a much lighter and joyous place. What has been gained? He is still alone in his knowing, living among souls who at this point do not know as he does, and who are all still trapped in a false character. John still does not know where the original human world is, how they got to Dark City, or how one can leave. The next phase of this story is the Matrix movie, which shows where Dark City headed. The Matrix reveals that for all John did and changed, not much ended well. The world of Neo after he escapes the first Matrix is the one where the machines have taken control, placed humans into pods, and given them an artificial world to believe they are living in. The few remaining humans are holed up in the old inner world of the strangers. You can clearly see that Zion is the strangers' old lair. Thus the movie Dark City continued to become the world of the Matrix. The suggestion by Morpheus that this took a long time, but the end result was that all of John's changes had almost no impact at all. The aliens, still in bug-like form, but now using AI machines, have retaken the world. This is the real message of Dark City and the Matrix. No one exited Plato's cave. John's world got overrun. The aliens put humans in a full-time sleep mode and made an artificial world to use them as batteries. This was the world Neo wakes out of. John was the original one, and he had almost no impact. If you carefully understand the ending of Matrix 3, Neo has had no impact at all either. He has been manipulated constantly, and the world of control is back in place.